5 Short Tales of Wonder by David Wright.
1.
A charming mistake. What is it? Aurora asked, holding the star-shaped plant to her nose and sniffing. It smells like a potato. I don't know what it's called. Does it matter? Oh, of course not. It's from you, my one true love. She leaned forward and kissed her new husband on the lips. They'd known each other a grand total of 72 hours, and now they would spend the rest of their lives together. Jack was cute in a boyish way, with a cheeky twinkle in his eye that was oddly familiar. But did she really love him? After coming out of cryosleep, she felt so out of it, like the world had passed her by. She just jumped on the first man to come along, and that was Jack Churlow. With all the beauty enhancements she'd had done, the poor boy didn't stand a chance. She smiled at the thought. What? Jack asked, looking at the potato-smelling flower. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, she said. He shrugged. Aurora decided to change the subject. Churlow, that's an interesting name. It's your name now, honey. What does it mean? Huh? Names used to mean something. My maiden name, Gaia, means Earth Mother, but it wasn't my real name. I changed it after my first marriage fell apart. Oh. Jack blew on his coffee, bored already. My dad changed his name to Churlow after we moved to Pluto, so I don't know. I never knew that. Where were you born? Aurora interrupted, causing Jack to frown. He could be so moody sometimes, she was beginning to discover. Paris, but what a coincidence! So was I! Small world. This time Jack seemed determined to finish his story. But we moved to Pluto a long time ago, just after his wife left him. I was only a baby at the time. I had a baby once. Jack's eyebrows rose at this, his blue eyes losing a little of their twinkle, and then he continued. Anyways, the Plutonians couldn't pronounce his old name, so he changed it. Titans had the same problem with my name. What a coincidence, Jack snapped, his voice now dripping with blatant sarcasm. But he had nothing else to say. His little story was finished. He blew in his coffee again. Aurora fondled Jack's flower. It was beginning to stink up the cabin. She wondered how she might dispose of it discreetly without further provoking Jack's growing petulance. By the way, hun, what was your ex-husband's name? Jack asked, squinting out of the corner of his eye. Aurora smiled to herself. Charming. Gordon Charming? Why, you know him? Jack's face went white, and Aurora thought he was going to be sick. Maybe it was the overwhelming smell of potatoes. He's my father, he said slowly. Aurora heard a crack and looked down to see the brittle stem of Jack's flower broken in her hand. Small world. She felt her cheeks flush. He didn't look that young. More than kin and less than kind. What? Never mind. The end.
2.
A Stranger's Bounty. The stranger was in the kyuk tree, just perched there, 20 lengths up, like a bald eagle, except without wings. He was bald, though, just the human kind of bald, not with white feathers. He didn't fly up there, so he must have climbed. But I didn't see how. I couldn't climb a kyuk tree. And even if I could, I wouldn't. Before she died, Mother told me not to climb up there. And Mother was 1,000 years old. And after she died, she told me the same thing. Hey! I called out as loud as I could. But my little girl's voice was quickly swallowed up by the vast 1,000-year-old orchard. He would never hear me. I hoped he didn't fall, and then, in a flash, he was gone. Greetings, child. He smiled at me from the base of the tree. Full red lips, white teeth. He was beautiful, like the regenerated, even though he was bald. "Hi," I said without fear. "You're lucky you didn't fall. You could die." My mother and father couldn't die anymore, couldn't get sick, couldn't even go bald. They could come and go anywhere they wanted, to the city, even up that tree. But this man couldn't be regenerated because he was bald. So how did he get up there? "Foolish child." He shook his pretty head and made a funny noise with his tongue that I didn't like. "Surely you know of more kinds than that." "I do," I said defensively, digging my hoe into the moist soil. "Well?" I moved a wolf spider off my bare arm and placed it gently on a nearby leaf. It stepped gingerly over a fly without disturbing it, and paused to drink from a bead of sap. The Antarctic sun was hot on my face. I should really invite this stranger in for herbs and berry wine, but not while he was still talking. That would be rude. "There are plants and animals," I recited dutifully. "Yes, and what else?" "And angels, I suppose." "You suppose? Don't tell me you doubt the existence of angels." "Of course not. Father says there are angels. It's just that—" I picked up my hoe and put it over my shoulder. This conversation was becoming a bit too much like Sabbath school. "What is it, child? What is it about angels that troubles you?" "It's just that I've never seen one, at least not yet. I'm only 50. "Well, now you have." He smiled at me again with those big red lips and pearly white teeth. An angel. So that was what they looked like. I thought they had wings, but not always, I guess. Sometimes they just looked like men. I hoped they weren't all bald. "Would you like to come in for herbs and berry wine? The sun is hot and will get hotter." "No, my child, the sun does not bother me, and I have food far tastier than your Arctic herbs, and drink much stronger than your berry wine. Kingdoms to conquer, worlds to plunder." I was not insulted, but still I found it hard to believe that there could be anything tastier than Antarctic herbs and Kyuk berry wine. As for the rest of his words, they were mere gibberish. What kingdoms? What worlds? Did not the prince rule all kingdoms? Did not his father rule the world? "Bye," I said in my little girl's voice, but before I could turn to leave, the stranger held out his hand. It sparkled with rings, golden rings, with diamonds and rubies. "I could take you with me." "Where?" I glanced up to the very top of the tallest kyuk tree, where he had been sitting, and pointed. "To there?" "To there, and to other places you could not even imagine, worlds of great wealth and beauty. You don't have to live in this ancient ruin on the bottom of the world. You don't have to live in the shadow of your ancient parents anymore. You can be free. Soon others will follow me, thousands, millions. You can be the first of them, my queen, my empress." His words were powerful, full of deep connotation, things I'd only ever read about in the scrolls. I felt my youthful spirit drawn to this bald angel in a way I did not understand. I felt like I was balancing on the edge of something, like the great eagle on the highest branch. The sparkling hand was reaching for me. I had only to take it. 10 leagues away, graphene bells were ringing, calling all souls to prayer. Mother and father would be home soon. They would be full of new stories of the prince and his city, of new wonders they'd seen on their journeys through space and time. Someday they would be my stories, stories that would last for all eternity. I glanced up at the ancient kyuk tree, planted as a seed by my parents more than 1,000 years ago, and then back at the bald angel with his sparkling hand and glowing words. "No thank you, stranger. Kyuk berry wine is good enough for now." The angel lowered his hand, making the disappointed noise with his tongue again, the noise I didn't like, and then in an angry flash he was gone. The end.
3,
Bus stop 126. A scruffy man in a blue baseball cap sat at bus stop 126, waiting. From time to time he looked at his watch, out across the empty intersection and up at the bus stop billboard. The woman in the ad captivated him. She wore a pink uniform and a pink cap. Her hair was golden, and her smile sparkled under the streetlights. She was a woman he could never have, not in real life. The buses came and went again, and then were done for the night. But still the man waited beneath the gaze of the poster's radiant blue eyes. It was almost time. 26 seconds to go. He stood up in anticipation. A small pickup drove up alongside the bus stop. It was the only vehicle on the road at this time of night, and the man at the bus stop seemed just a little apprehensive at its arrival. He sat down and looked at his watch again. 22 seconds. A sudden urgency swelled in his stomach. A city worker emerged from the pickup with a flat-faced shovel and a rake. He gave the man a passing glance and began to scrape the cigarette butts off the ground and into the shovel. The man looked at his watch again, 18 seconds, and then he looked back up at the billboard. The woman no longer appeared to be smiling. Her face, too, began to look urgent, even frantic. The sweeper looked up at the scruffy man, and his eyebrows crinkled. Picking up what appeared to be the last cigarette butt, he put his shovel back in the pickup and climbed in. By this time the man was standing with his eyes glued to his watch, and his hand braced against the plastic picture. 3 seconds. The engine started. 2 seconds. The wheels began to roll. 1 second. His lips pressed against the cold plastic surface of the billboard. Slowly he staggered backward, wrenching his baseball cap off his head. Clumsily he dropped down to the wooden bench, staring at the poster for even the most imperceptible sign of movement. "Am I too late?" he whispered. There, he saw it, the slight flicker of an eyelash. She was alive. Gradually the flicker became a full-fledged blink. He could see in the eyes of the woman before him a profound relief. Slowly the emergence of life from that plastic medium began to migrate down to her cheeks. The rosy red lips, which were parted into a smile, closed and then reopened with sound. "You were almost too late," she said as life moved further down her body to her neck. "The sweeper was right here. I couldn't—" The man spoke rapidly without thinking, his heart pumping in his vocal cords. "I can't wait, you know that." Her arms reached and flexed into the cool night air. "I was afraid you weren't going to come," she whispered. The man tried desperately to hush her anxious fears, and his own as well. "You know I would never leave you. You are my only reality, my only dream for the future," he explained hastily. Her transformation was almost complete, her legs now having life, being changed from a plastic-covered yellow ink to a smooth, rich gold. "Hurry," she said, waving her empty hand. "It's almost done." He stepped forward slowly. "You will come for me?" he asked, as his lips drew closer. "Of course I will, when it is time," she said, reaching for him. Suddenly he looked back. "My love," she pleaded helplessly. Then, reaching out, he turned to her again. "My love," he responded, and his lips met hers in a kiss that seemed to last forever. From across the street, the sound of a pickup's motor invaded the silence of the night. The vehicle did a slow U-turn across the solid yellow line and pulled up beside bus stop 126. The driver got out with obvious fatigue and looked at his watch. 1:26. He smirked at the coincidence and picked up his rake. He looked up at the handsome young man on the billboard, and his eyebrows crinkled. He turned just in time to catch a fleeting glimpse of a woman in pink running down the street, her golden hair shining brightly in the moonlight. He thought he heard laughter, but then again, it might just have been the wind. The end.
4.
Death Day. The holo, like all the others, read Happy Death Day, and sported a rather goofy 3D picture of a whited skull with a big toothy grin. Zippy said it was modeled after the Day of the Dead skulls in Mexico, but what did she know? She was only 9 and wouldn't make it past 10. Tay-Sachs disease. Sad, really, if you think about it, but we never did. "Come on, Crank, open mine." Pawn shoveled his holo in my face, laughing. The holo was laughing, not Pawn. Pawn was too intent on getting me to open it. Like Zippy, Pawn was another short-timer, except his shtick was Neiman Pick. That was his joke, not mine. Okay already. I touched his laughing skull and watched the brains explode. Everybody laughed. Death Day was supposed to be serious, a chance to reflect on the time left and what you were going to do with it, or at least that was what my mother always said. But that was what you'd expect from a long-lifer. Mother had the genes of an oak tree and was expected to live to 99. It was different for her. When you knew that you were going to live that long, you needed to have a plan, or you'd go insane. You couldn't just fall in love with a cute guy. What if he dropped dead in a few years and you were left all alone? And then there was your career choice to consider. Imagine cutting grass or dumping garbage or cleaning toilets for 90 years. No, if you knew you were going to live that long, you needed to stay in school, go to college, get a good job, and actually do something with your life. But not us. There was no point. It didn't matter that my IQ was 220. My gene clock ran out at 14. That was the only number that mattered now. "Me next," Tupip pushed in, her huge head dripping with sweat. It kind of grossed me out, but I reached for her card anyways. She was my friend, after all, and I didn't have time to be stupid about it. The holo skull started singing, "Happy Death Day to you," and everybody joined in. When the song got to the end, the skull turned into a blue angel, filling the whole room with stars. It was spectacular, and obviously very expensive. Parents had a way of shelling out for things like that, especially near the end, and Tupip was definitely near the end. "Thanks, Tupip," I said. It was hard to tell with all that sweat, but I think she was crying. She was counting in months now, not like the rest of us who still had a year or more. Mom came in with the cake and 3 candles, one less than last year. I gave them a blow, and one ember smoked longer than the rest. Everybody giggled, guessing who my sweetheart was. It was silly. I would never have a sweetheart. Not really. After the cake was passed around and everybody had as much as they wanted, there was no point in being stingy, Mum quieted everybody down. This was tradition as well, the speech thing. Usually it was long and boring, lots of tears from the relatives who were all mid or long lifers, but today Mum actually looked happy for a change. "Karish, darling, I've got some good news." She took a deep breath, tears coming to her eyes, and yet, for some reason, she still looked happy. "You qualified for the treatment. The doctors say it could modify the defect in your genes." Doctors said all sorts of things. It never really amounted to much. But this seemed different somehow. "What do you mean?" "Well, darling, I don't really know, but they say you could be going home soon." Home? The word was alien to me. I had no memory of home. I'd always been here. "What about my friends?" I asked. "Will they go home too?" Mum looked confused. "No, dear. They don't have the same genetic disease that you do. The new treatment is only for trisomy 18. My friends were all staring at me. Zippy, Pon, Two-Pip. I wasn't sure they understood everything my mother was saying. They were younger than I was and didn't have a 220 IQ like I did. But they knew the word home. "You're leaving us?" Two-Pip said, and started to cry again. And soon we were all crying. It was clear that Mom hadn't counted on ruining the party like this. She tried to calm us down by saying it wouldn't be right away, not for a few months. We still had time to say goodbye. "I'm not saying goodbye," I screamed, "because I'm not leaving. I don't care about the treatment. I don't want it. I'm not leaving my friends. I'm not leaving." They let me stay in the hospital for 2 months, just until Two-Pip died, and then I had to go home. Zippy died a year later, and Pon a year after that. By then, I was practically cured. Not a long lifer like Mom, but not a short-timer either. The doctors didn't know what I was. My genetic clock was undefined. I never celebrate death days anymore. They say I don't have one. Maybe in the end, it's better this way. The end.
5.
4 to Madness. I am a persona. This is hard to explain to someone who is not a persona, but I will try because I am teacher. Being a persona is like being an incomplete person. I have 10 fingers and toes, but in my mind there is something missing. To use a metaphor from my century, my world, all the hardware is in place, but the software is different, more refined, without paradox or ambiguity. This is how I found myself when I awoke one morning naked in the jungle of an unknown world. "You came by way of the river?" It was less of a question than a statement. There was no other way to the city unless he had a working boat, and nothing worked on this planet, at least no machinery. The physics didn't allow it. The man nodded and tossed his half-finished meat into the fire. His manner was offhand, withdrawn and restless. He was like no leader I had ever met in the days when I walked the earth with mortals. He told us that his name was Alexander Rickles, and that he had been the chairman of the board for some large multinational corporation that I'd never heard of, or could no longer remember. It doesn't matter now anyways. Whatever was Alexander Rickles had been boiled down to leader, or at least so it seemed. "Did you see any signs of others? Markings, structures, smoke in the distance?" "Nothing." "But the treehouse. You must have seen the maker's treehouse. It was built next to the river, high up on the canyon, fantastic view of the Greenlands. What? Yes, I saw it. Leader stood up. He was medium height. We all were. Look, this place is not going to be any good for sleeping. The wind off the water blows right in here. We'll freeze by morning. He seemed agitated. Maybe he was leader. His voice was loud and threatening. But then, he didn't know anything about the wind. The wind blows out to sea at night. We've been sleeping here for several months now, and it's a lovely spot at night. I did not fear him, despite his loud voice. I did not know why. I finished my bird leg, wrapped it in a broadleaf, and stood up. Just the same, maybe it's time to move on. Sung? I called into the other area. I can't say room because the building was incomplete. They all were, like movie sets, realistic to the last detail on the outside, but inside, bare girders and air ducts. It was like the aliens wanted to reconstruct a city for us to live in, but all they had to go on was pictures from far away. They knew the whats and wheres, but nothing about the whys or hows. I presumed that's why we were incomplete, just personas of our former selves. Mr. Sung, what do you think? Should we move on? Mr. Sung walked into the fire area with a wooden pot full of rainwater. He had constructed a rain catcher and makeshift toilet on the balcony. It was nothing like the towering skyscrapers and luxury hotels he'd built in Japan, but it was effective and took days to construct without the help of modern tools. This was only one of his many projects in the last few months in the city. I knew he didn't want to leave them, but he nodded reluctantly. I met Mr. Sung 430 days ago. He was living in his treehouse next to the river. It wasn't until then that I began recording the days. Before then, there had been no reason to. No seasons, no hope of rescue. I traveled from place to place, making signs on the trees and caves for others to follow. North. What? We could head north. I pointed out the windowless window. There are many beautiful buildings in that direction. Maybe there are supplies. Rickles' eyes widened. No, there's nothing that way. You've been there? Rickles shook his head. It just doesn't look good. We'll go south. Mr. Sung was looking at me puzzled. We entered the city from the north 3 months ago. We already knew what was there. A dead woman. Her body so badly mutilated that only an animal could have been responsible. Or so we thought until we saw the words of anger and madness in blood smeared across her work in clay and paint. I don't know her name, but she was artist. Now she was lost. It's settled then. Rickles stood up. Tomorrow morning at dawn we'll head south. Now I think we should put out this fire and go to sleep. We have a big day ahead of us. We waited until Rickles was in a deep sleep before lighting the fires. It was a 3-story building made of wood and burned well. Mr. Sung was maker and knew how to make it burn. If Rickles did wake up before he choked on the smoke or burned in the flames, he would have found that his legs and arms were tied to the floor. It had taken a lot of reasoning to convince Maker of this plan. He knew nothing of lying and killing. He had to be taught. They all did. I could see that when the scream started, Maker was beginning to doubt. But it was only when he saw the door closing on him did he see the truth, and so did I. This was the final lesson. I remember a woman in the forest. I'd followed her signs to the mouth of her cave, my hands still bloody. She clothed me, fed me, gave me shelter and comfort. She taught me about the world, about compassion and love, for she was teacher. We talked for days until I became her and left her body in the forest to be torn by animals. I feel the awful loneliness now, crushing me. I probably won't last long without the others, but it really doesn't matter. I know who I am. I am the serpent in the garden. I am death. I am madness. Perhaps when I am gone, the aliens will remake us, and we four can play again. The end. Thanks for listening to 5 Short Tales of Wonder by David Wright. Don't forget to like and subscribe.